the weather outside is frightful, or at least the roads are here in Pittsburgh. So let's talk some Antonio Brown. Get by the fire, cozy up, and hear and watch me speak about Antonio Brown, your favorite subject, I'm sure, Steeler fans, on this edition of Mic Drop here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I am your host, Mike Asti, coming at you from the Beaver County Auto Studios up above Market Square here in downtown Pittsburgh. And the Antonio Brown drama just won't go away. And now it's officially official. Here you go. There it is. It's officially official. Antonio Brown throwing up a tweet, a nice video montage saying goodbye to the city of Pittsburgh, goodbye to Steeler Nation after 9 wonderful years. He says, shows some highlights, including game winners against the Ravens to clinch the division title, and emotions, early days with Ben, and how they became a great quarterback-receiver combination. And it looks hunky-dory and wonderful there. Swan song, according to Antonio Brown there as he exits as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe someday this montage in his crazy mind will get played to usher him into a Steelers Ring of Honor. And I was fortunately able to see that tweet despite Antonio Brown trying to make it so it's not possible. Antonio Brown blocking me on Twitter for I'm not sure exactly which reason. I am a member of Pittsburgh media here, and I have obviously spoke out that the Steelers need to be done with him, and enough is enough, and that's detailed here. There you go. SteelersNow.com, our venture here in the Pittsburgh Sports Now family, and did it on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Steelers must trade Antonio Brown. There's a little show I did, caught some attention, got some views. About a month ago, when this all erupted, I threw that take out there, and many agree with me because kind of it felt like the Steelers, from what they were saying, felt enough was enough, and I felt enough was enough, just like it has happened with other diva, elite, Hall of Fame receivers throughout the history of the National Football League. But I don't know if that triggered Antonio Brown to block me or what triggered him to do so, but it was a triggering. It was either him or one of his handlers, but he decided to block me, and a little jokingly, because it's not that difficult. So this kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to cover the Steelers right now. Well, little does he know I have access to other professional accounts and other accounts, and not even just from this network. So I can see his insanity and ridiculousness and asinine tweets if I need to, and also they get sent to me. So again, here, Antonio Brown puts up the video and makes it officially official, requesting a trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, number one, and this is where I want to begin here. Number one, that should do it for you guys. That should be enough now for Steeler fans. If you weren't on board with me a month ago when I said the Steelers must trade Antonio Brown, if you didn't feel enough was enough then, if you weren't as fed up as it appeared Mike Tomlin was at the end of the season press conference that I attended, if you didn't agree with the comments from the owner, from Art Rooney II, when he emphatically told Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which I've also touched on past shows here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, that he can't envision a scenario where Antonio Brown is a part of the team come training camp. If you still wanted to let bygones be bygones, and while he is absolutely arguably the greatest receiver in football still and had a tremendous season last year, even though some were down on him, and Juju had a little bit, maybe arguably a better season, but it's still arguably because Brown had 1,000+ yards, 15+ touchdowns, 100+ catches. Those are seasons that only 7 other receivers in league history have ever had, and one of them being a guy named Randy Moss, another former malcontent who had to get ushered off of teams in the past due to diva behavior. So while on the field, obviously, he can help you be productive, but we already saw that get to a problem in Week 17. He was not on the field. They did lose that game, maybe. Or they did win that game, but it was close and didn't make the playoffs anyway, but maybe he could have helped them in that game. It was certainly a nail-biter, as they had to watch. Juju had to watch the middle of the field to see if they would make the playoffs. But we know that story, and regardless of his production on the field. I felt, and still do, again, enough has to be enough at some point. But if you weren't there with me, this, again, this has to do it for you guys. Go to the tweet. You can see it more clearly. He's not blocking you on Twitter. Doesn't have a problem with you. He's not blocking you on Twitter, as I'll still throw that up there and find that hilarious. Probably the funniest person who blocks me on Twitter. But how is this not enough here? Thank you, Steeler Nation, for a big 9 years. Time to move on and forward. Little peace sign, little peace on the emoji. He's saying goodbye. He's breaking up with you, Steeler Nation. How is that not enough? That's my main thing here, because you're still seeing tweets. You're still seeing people arguing that they want to keep Antonio Brown, that they need to somehow make this work, that Antonio Brown is so great on the field, this team desperately needs him on the field. They need his production. You're still hearing this. You're still hearing people cheer for him, defend him. You're still seeing Steeler fans defend Antonio Brown. You're still seeing Steeler fans saying that Antonio Brown is justified for these thoughts and behavior. And even if you think somehow he's justified for these thoughts, and Ben has thrown him under the bus at times, so I maybe could hear you there. And even if you feel like Tomlin let this run amok, and I could hear you there, because they're both true things and they are part of this, you can't argue Antonio Brown is handling this well, or handling this maturely, or handling this professionally. His handling is enough to make enough with him. And some point you have to draw the line, especially if you claim you're above all this as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I've detailed in a recent show, they are not above any moral high ground, and they have no right to criticize, nor do Steeler fans have the right to criticize, say, the Browns for signing Kareem Hunt recently. They let James Harrison hang around for years and years and years after admitting domestic violence, and the Rooney family defended him ridiculously back then when that story first came out. Go back to my last show on Pittsburgh Sports Live for those hot takes. But still, guys, Antonio Brown, regardless, yes, he's great on the field. And I understand business is business, and you want to win, and you want to have business boom better, to steal his phrase, when he's on the field. But in 9 years with Antonio Brown, the Steeler franchise has not won a Super Bowl. The Steeler franchise appeared in one Super Bowl with Antonio Brown, and that was when he was not an elite receiver. He was not the number one receiver. He was trying to make his way on a team as the number 3 guy early on, right when he got started, and that was a Super Bowl loss to the Green Bay Packers. Since then, it's been playoff berth, it's been division titles, but it's been mostly consistent playoff losses, including disappointing earlier than you'd expect losses, say a couple years ago to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was in that press box, incredibly shocked and disappointing of that atmosphere with that team they had on paper, losing to the Jaguars. Getting in the AFC Championship game a few seasons ago and losing to New England, and okay, you lose to New England, but he creates tons of drama, a firestorm based on his little Facebook Live after the divisional playoff win. Kind of the first rumblings of this, you could kind of point there, unless you go back to his former teammates and Ryan Clark, etc., who were claiming this would have happened the minute you gave him that contract. And I'll get to all that in a second. But you haven't won a championship with him in the 9 years. So his incredible production hasn't led you to a championship. T.O. should have been a first-ballot Hall of Famer. Currently, he's in the Hall of Fame, eventually got in. Didn't win a championship with him. None of his teams won championships with him and all his behavior. He appeared in one and was great in that game and would have been Super Bowl MVP, but didn't win a championship and didn't get in any of the other years where he was also great on the field. Wide receiver is a position that you can easily replace. It's not the quarterback position. It's not certain defensive positions. You can get another premier wide receiver. Juju is that guy. He can be a number one on your team. And Ben keeps talking highly about James Washington, saying he can step right in and be that guy. So you can get that production. The Steelers have done that. The Steelers have done it with Mike Wallace. The Steelers have done it with Santonio Holmes, who did win them a championship and was Super Bowl MVP. The Steelers Did it with Martavis Bryant, who wasn't a number one, but he was a talented wide receiver. They had hopes of progressing with him. And then he started acting up and immediately got shipped out. He wanted out, but he got shipped out, and they haven't missed him, really. They're putting points up still. So wide receiver is a position that you can replace. Randy Moss, one of the greatest receivers of all time. He was a first ballot. Like T.O. should have been. He actually got in first ballot. But he went team to team. Great career in Minnesota, eventually ushered off. The Raiders, they weren't winning. He intentionally took plays off. New England, great receiver, Super Bowl appearance, undefeated regular season, one of the best single seasons for a receiver in league history with Brady. And then a year or so later, started acting up again. They shipped him off. And it happened team after team after team. Doesn't mean he's not a great receiver like AB is. But teams eventually said enough was enough and got fed up. And they didn't win championships during their career. Ocho Cinco's another one to point to. Enough has to eventually be enough. There hasn't been a championship with him. It's an easily replaceable position, despite how great he is. You have a number one already on the team. And if nothing else, guys, he broke up with you. It's like an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. And I tweeted this. When an ex breaks up with you publicly, disrespects you time and time again, when you get broken up with publicly and disrespected time and time again, and then makes it clear they don't want you anymore and they in fact want someone else, it's then borderline pathetic to still want them. Okay? I've had breakups. I've had bad breakups in my day, but eventually enough has to be enough. We all have. But when you're publicly disrespected, when you are publicly broken up with, it's not a mutual breakup. It's not cordial. You're publicly disrespected and publicly broken up with, and it's made clear that ex doesn't want you any longer, then you Steeler fans need to be okay with saying, hey, I need to move on. I don't want you either. Just like you will with an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. So there's no reason any longer why Steeler fans still want Antonio Brown. It's borderline pathetic at this point. You need to want to move on as well. Now, the other end of this is there are people accusing CTE as the culprit here. There are people saying that a head injury, some head trauma, and we all know about the story of concussions in the National Football League. Watch a movie with Will Smith about it. Are responsible here for Antonio Brown's antics. And I want to make this clear. I'm not in any way dismissing the seriousness of CTE. I'm not in any way dismissing the seriousness of concussions and head trauma with football players or really any athlete. And I'm not here as a doctor or somebody who has diagnosed Antonio Brown or is, can tell you what's going on up there in the cranium. I'm not a psychologist either. Got one here next door to us here in the Beaver County Auto Studios, though, weirdly. I might have to go see him after all these Antonio Brown shows and after covering the Steelers and all their drama because maybe I need to talk about some things. But I'm not going to, let's put it to you this way. I'm not going to dismiss the possibility. I'm not going to say that I can dismiss CTE or head trauma as a possibility here. I'm sure a player that's been in the National Football League for almost a decade and got rocked time and time again, and we know the hit from Vontaze Burfict that keeps being brought up, I'm sure maybe there's some head trauma there, maybe CTE, maybe that's a factor. We've seen citizens and players and people take a tailspin, and CTE being pointed to that. We know the Junior Seau story, Mike Webster for Steeler fans, etc. So I'm not going to dismiss the possibility, but I'm going to say this. To believe that CTE is the only culprit here, to immediately point to this is CTE with Antonio Brown, dismisses everything that has been said by his former teammates, Ryan Clark, etc., as lies or just simply not true. Because Ryan Clark and other Steeler teammates, Emmanuel Sanders, another one, and they've had their war words, but their former teammates who know him well and before they got into these war of words, they were teammates that knew him. Jeff Reed appeared on my Triple Live radio show a year ago and gave me some takes in terms of pulling the curtain back on his talks with Antonio Brown during AB's early career and Jeff's late career when he actually was a team leader on the team and AB was still coming up. And knowing his personality then and how he acted. And Ryan Clark, Emmanuel Sanders to the national media, and Jeff Reed told me to my face in our studio that they all saw this coming. That he was acting in these egotistical, diva-centered, selfish, personality-filled, dramatic-toned, just asinine manners early on in his Steelers career and even before he got tons of money. It wasn't as publicized, but they also all said that once he was given the mega deal, the deal that Le'Veon Bell never received and continuously wanted, and that led to his drama. But AB was given that mega deal. He has 3 more years left on the deal now, actually, which makes that little tweet there in the video funny on his farewell tour because he's not been traded yet as we speak here and as I record this now. But they all said they knew it was coming. They aren't shocked at all that before he was rocked hit by hit, and I know he played football in college and high school, and maybe the CTE is pointed back then. That's, again, why I don't want to dismiss this fully, and there could be some there. But to say that it's 100% responsible seems a bit overblown. It seems like pointing to something and blaming something just because you want to point to something and you don't want to admit that he just wants to break up with you. And he's doing it unprofessionally, and he's doing it ridiculously, and he doesn't like you anymore, Steeler fans. He doesn't like you anymore. Okay? He's saying that it's not him, it's you. That's what Antonio Brown's saying. He's not giving you it's not you, it's me. Antonio Brown is saying, it's not me, it's you. And he's saying that to the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise, to the Rooney family, to his teammates, Ben Roethlisberger, whoever else, Juju Smith-Schuster, the whole defense, past and present, and to you, Steeler Nation. Antonio Brown is breaking up with you. He doesn't want you any longer. So, move on. But, again, point of CTE, his former teammates, Jeff Reed, Emmanuel Sanders to the national media, or Ryan Clark, Emmanuel Sanders to the national media, and Jeff Reed to me personally, because he hasn't thrown this to the national media, doesn't have the publicity that they do, but to me personally, a year ago on a Trib show, he made it clear that they all saw this coming. They're not surprised by this. He had this similar personality back then, and once he got paid, it was going to eventually run amok. And then, of course, I can get you Mike Tomlin, let this get out of control. I've mentioned that before. Ben Roethlisberger has thrown the subtle jabs in. He's also immature. Everyone else has some culpability here. But that includes Antonio Brown, and I don't think it's just CTE. To just point to CTE basically means his former teammates, the Ryan Clarks, the Emmanuel Sanders, the Jeff Reeds, are flat liars or just wrong in their perception of him early on. And I'm going to actually take their word for it. I'm going to believe them over AB based on what I've seen now recently, based on how he's acted and based on how he's lied to my face before. And I don't have that example with them. And to your faces. Now for our little third song and dance here. And I do want to give some pub to this. Mike Vukovican here, SteelersNow.com. He wrote this little story, little article. Steelers should play hardball with Antonio Brown. Vove wanting the Steelers to kind of not really acquiesce and trade him during the draft, wanting them to kind of dangle this around, wanting them to kind of wait with him and maybe not even trade him to the destination of his choice. He is under contract for 3 more years. He thinks he has leverage, and maybe he does have the leverage in terms of, I'll refuse to play for you, and I'll keep getting fined, and I won't get my paycheck, and I'll pull Le'Veon Bell even though I have more years left in my contract. And it'll be a little different than that, though, because he is under contract, unlike Lev, who never signed the franchise tag. He wasn't under contract. So AB will not show up, and AB will not play hard, and AB will pull the Week 17 crap, and he'll do that BS again, and maybe he won't take MRIs when they are called upon, and it'll be another year of that, and maybe he won't play for you at all. So that's the leverage AB may have That's why I want him traded. That's why I said the Steelers must trade AB even a month ago. Steelers must trade Antonio Brown. Also articulated some possible destinations for Antonio Brown. Get all that at SteelersNow.com. That's a past show there on Pittsburgh Sports Live as well, so you can also find that here on the YouTube channel, scrolling through the mic drop category, and it has its own little channel there in PSL. And I went through the whole first round. Steelers with the 20th pick. I went from 1 to 19, telling you what those teams could offer in addition to those picks, including those picks, whether they're really viable, whether they would really do it based on knowing what I know of those franchises, and whether it made sense as a trade partner for the Steelers. Because, again, Antonio Brown now, he wants traded. He's publicly breaking up with you. The Steelers can't be this disrespected and just take it. Now he needs to go. And where I part with Vove a little bit with Mike Vukovican on that Steelers Now post, which, again, go find it, SteelersNow.com. It's not a ridiculous take. I get it. And I wouldn't necessarily send him to where he wants to go. I would send him to the best deal for me. The best deal for the Steelers. He wants to be a Niner. He wants to go to San Francisco and usher in the new era after Jerry Rice and T.O. and great receivers they've had. No, they've had T.O., so they've dealt with these divas and problems before. But he idolizes Jerry Rice. There's a poster of him in his house. Apparently he has spoken to Jerry Rice about this. He wants to be a Niner. And we know the Niners have a pretty solid draft pick. They have the number 2 overall pick after coming off a disappointing year with Garoppolo's injury and less than expectations. But they feel like if they get Garoppolo back healthy and they get healthier, that maybe they could turn the corner quickly and still contend. They thought they would this past season. But it's unlikely, from what's been around, that they're going to trade the number 2 overall pick. Of course, I would do it for the number 2 overall pick, but it's unlikely they're going to trade that for AB. He's not making his value any better with the recent domestic violence allegations and how he's acting here. And again, there's always going to be a place for a player with talent, even with domestic violence around their name. We saw that with Kareem Hunt. We've seen that with many others, and Ray Rice didn't get a second chance, but he was kind of washed up at that point. AB's still in his prime, still producing, still giving you that 1,000 plus, 100 plus catch, 10 plus the last year with 15 touchdowns. One of the best receivers in football, if not the best. Still. On the field, can't take that away from him. So maybe they would do it for number 2 overall pick. I highly doubt it. They'd have to throw in more. Or, I mean, they wouldn't have to throw in more, but they'd have to throw in more with their deal if it's not the number 2 overall pick. Because the second round, the early second round is not going to be enough. An early second round pick, no. Not for AB. It might be what he goes for, though, because Moss and T.O. didn't go for those first-round picks at that time when they were great receivers in their prime, elite receivers in the midst of drama. They didn't get number 1s. Amari Cooper, though, recently last year got number 1. He didn't have necessarily the drama, but he wasn't to their level, wasn't as great as they were, was impactful for the Cowboys to help them get to the playoffs, but he went for a number 1 in that deal with the Raiders. Now, the Cowboys might have been really desperate to do that, and maybe that's not indicative of how everything will go in the future, but still, he goes for number 1 more recently than those other deals that I can point to. That may make the Steelers want a number 1 or nothing. So maybe they're going to wait number 1 or nothing, and we're going to wait and dangle AB, and we're not going to give him what he wants, and we won't trade him during the draft unless it's number 1. But the only teams really that maybe would do this in number 1 scenario, maybe the Panthers, who I've detailed, but they're not picking until 16. That's not much of a jump for the Steelers. The Dolphins, but that's still not enough of a dump for the Steelers. Maybe that and another pick. Maybe the Steelers move up there and are okay with it. I don't know. The second round, you're going to need to, if it's second round, say the Niners or whoever, it'll need to be second round pick and a lot more in addition to that, but ideally you'd rather a first. Maybe he won't go for that. Maybe he will, but say it's a second round, probably more likely an easier trade for the Steelers to make. You got that second round, early second round pick from the Niners, and then something else, either a player on the field, another draft pick, a future first rounder, something. It has to be value in return. So I want AB gone as quick as possible. That's mainly where I'm parting with Vukovican. I want rid of this guy. I'm sick of covering this guy. I'm sick of dealing with this guy. I'm sure the Steelers are. It appears they are from what I've heard from them, from what they've told us, and just their demeanor in general. And it's time to move on. And you almost are better with the subtraction by addition here with AB at this point. He could be a locker room cancer for you more than he was in recent seasons. And I know that some of the teammates still want him because he is productive on the field, just like some of you fans. But this now is going to get to the point he publicly said he wants gone. He publicly has now requested the trade and waved goodbye in that little video. So move on. The teammates should feel disrespected now and officially needing to move on. So should management. So should you, the fans. And now it needs to happen. Steelers must trade Antonio Brown. Said it a month ago. Now it's more true than ever before. So, again, I don't want to send him to where he wants to go. I want to get the best deal. If it's the Niners, then okay. It's NFC. If it's the best deal, make it. If it's not, don't make it. I'd love to dangle him around and annoy him and show him who's boss. But more importantly, I just want rid of him as soon as possible. Because this has now got to asinine levels, to say the least, and enough has to be enough. As I see there, I want to remind you again to click subscribe. Click on the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Click subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make it easier for us to get this content to you and more of our Antonio Brown takes when need be, mostly mine. As Steelers coverage here almost has become the Antonio Brown insider of the venture. Want to make sure to hit us up, PittsburghSportsNow.com. Alan Saunders traveling, giving you that full-fledged Pitt coverage right now in basketball season. Vukovic giving you the Pitt football coverage in recruiting season. So both important right now for either side of the Pitt fan. Dan Kongursky's Pittsburgh Hockey Now with the Penguins coverage. They're the team in the middle of the hotbed of their season with play of expectations and still trying to turn things around and what that team needs with recent injuries and the whole Evgeny Malkin issue and using his stick as a weapon and what that maybe could lead to, and this team needing to play to expectations and playing to their level and getting to turn things on and playing down to others and kind of mirroring a bit of the Steelers this past season, but a lot more recent success, so it's easier to take and still easier to believe it'll turn around, as I still kind of do. And even go to PittsburghSoccerNow.com. We have them on occasionally here on Pittsburgh Sports Live as well. Number one thing, though, at least while I'm on, SteelersNow.com, our new venture here within the Pittsburgh Sports Now, Pittsburgh Sports Live family. SteelersNow.com. Also can follow us there on Twitter, at PGH Steelers Now on Twitter. And follow us here, Pittsburgh Sports Live on Twitter, at PGH Sports Live on Twitter there to find us on Twitter. And send me any of the hate-filled DMs. Slide in there to tell me why you don't like me. That occasionally does occur, actually, weirdly. Or even give me some love. Give me some compliments. I kind of need that every now and then. You know, want to sift through all the buffoonery at Mike Asti 11. So, to be clear here, Antonio Brown has broken up with you guys. It's over. He broke up with you. There it is. There's the video. Did a little montage. Got to be impressed kind of with the production there. It's not bad. And I was able to see it, even though he blocked me on Twitter. Funny enough. But he broke up with you. It's over. He's moved on, mentally at least. So you should too. And I totally get how great he is on the field, but enough has to be enough. I want it done as soon as humanly possible, even though he's under contract. He doesn't have all the leverage here, and I would not trade him to where he wants to go. You get the best possible deal, whatever it is. But find Vukovic's take on kind of wanting to leave AB dangling, SteelersNow.com. You can also go to any of my past shows on this issue, where the possible destinations for Antonio Brown, the fact the Steelers must trade Antonio Brown, which I did originally over a month ago, any of these other shows, even most recently, my thoughts on the Browns signing Kareem Hunt. So the only thing that's being conquered right now in Pittsburgh, other than snowfall and the poor quality on the roads and unfortunately accidents all around that I almost got into even coming here to do this one, especially downtown, the city. Come on, help us out here. Come on, help us out. Come on, Peduto. I've had you on shows before. Help us out. But Antonio Brown, other things being conquered here is Antonio Brown from afar, not here. He doesn't have to deal with this. He's in Miami somewhere. He's not dealing with this weather. He, having his fun in Miami. Hopefully he doesn't throw anything off a balcony. But he's conquering drama and doing so all over, even especially on social media and also to the Grammys. Take a little Google search for a picture of him and Post Malone and decide for yourself who looked more ridiculous in that, because let me tell you, it's not a guarantee that it was Post Malone. I know the pink suit, but AB's little Fu Manchu, his little Hulk Hogan blonde mustache there, I don't know. Looks a bit absurd to my eyes. But I'm Mike Asti, trying to keep it moving here and trying to continue to conquer sports radio, really sports media in general, especially when it gives you the asinine take. Especially I'm the asinine insider almost here in the area. And doing it from the Beaver County Auto Studios on Pittsburgh Sports Live, one day at a time.